Welcome to the Kenneth Show. Today we are going to have a caller that is going to be talking about the struggles of dating. Modern dating has made things really complicated in a lot of ways when people are meeting online, and it's finding a whole new set of challenges. So let's get her on the line and see what she's got to say. So today we have Anna on the line. She is in her mid-30s and she's a single mom, and she wants to talk about dating. I hear it's pretty brutal out there.
Hey, it's tough.
Welcome to the show, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you on here. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well, I've been single for about 7 years, and I'm also a single mom. I've been on the dating apps on and off for several years, and this year I've been dating a little bit more frequently. But recently I dated someone that I really liked, and it was sort of long distance. We saw each other a few times, and I just started realizing that there was a lot of lack of accountability and consistency, and he just wasn't really remembering things that I was telling him. And although we talked to each other all the time, he wasn't making an effort to make any in-person plans. And so I communicated these expectations on a couple of different times, and he wasn't showing a whole lot of acknowledgement. And so I had to end things, in which he blocked me right away. And then a couple of weeks later, he started watching my social media. I actually reached out to him to see if I could open that door. Maybe he was afraid to reach out to me, and he said that he had nothing to say to me.
Wow.
So
I just want to stalk you forever.
I just want to watch.
It's so incredibly confusing. It's like, well, if you don't want to talk to me at all, why would you watch my stories?
Yeah,
exactly. And I did apologize for our last communication if it came off a little bit not aggressive, but I just wanted to apologize for anything that I might have said that may have come off the wrong way. But I did end things at that point a few weeks prior, and I just don't understand. If he doesn't want to talk to me, why does he continue to watch my stories if he has nothing that he wants to say? And I just want to know why in this generation, as women, are our expectations just too high? The dating world just seems really hard with the way that things are. So I just wanted a little bit of insight into the dating world these days.
Okay, well, let's take that a little bit at a time, because that was a lot, right?
yeah.
Okay, so you were talking to this guy, and it sounds like at first it seemed like he was interested. He was messaging you a lot, and then you went out, 3 times?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And then what happened that you finally said, this isn't working?
Well, there were a couple of instances. One where I didn't hear from him, and he told me he had lost his phone.
Sketchy.
Yeah, lost phone is possible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then there were some times where he had scheduled days off that he said he had to go into work, and then vice versa. So on the days that I did find out he had off, I asked him, I was like, why didn't you reach out to me to plan anything? And there just always seemed to be an excuse for everything. So I started getting frustrated.
Did he now hang on, let me pause you right there. Did he say, let me make it up to you, I really want to see you soon? Or did you just feel like he was giving you fake excuses?
He was giving me fake excuses, and he wasn't trying to make up for it.
Okay. So I could see why you'd be frustrated, right? Because you're like, how old was this guy?
He's also in his 30s.
Okay.
But younger.
And now, has he ever been married or have any kids that you know of?
No.
Okay.
now you had said you had met him on online dating, is that right?
Correct.
And this can be tricky because somebody on an app may also be dating multiple people. And so when someone is on a date, how do you account for that time where you are offline, right?
I lost my phone, apparently.
Right? And so I find that in today's culture, it can be difficult to say to somebody that you're dating, hey, yeah, I was just on another date considering my other option. And so that could be a really big challenge.
But now I'm home, so I can chat with you until tomorrow where I have a different date with somebody else.
And this is disappointing on your end because this is the beginning of a relationship. This is the part where, they're supposed to impress you and you feel that want to impress them too. Sure. So when you're being disappointed and seeing there's not a lot of follow through, there's just this kind of passive behavior that you're seeing, and then even after you end it, he's still watching your stories. There's this feeling of, okay, what are we doing here?
Well, that certainly makes it a lot more confusing when you
right.
end it, because they're not really making an effort, and then all of a sudden it's like, but why? Okay, then why do you still care? So I can imagine your frustration with that.
And just for a different perspective, let's say he is dating other people. Let's just assume for this case that he's dating other people. Now he has you on his social media and checking your stories every so often. If the person that he's dating or decides to take seriously asks, who is this woman? What is he going to say? So I could see on his end just a lack of clarity. I can understand your frustration because he's not being very direct with you. He's not telling you what's going on.
I'm curious as to what he may have been telling you about where he thought things were going. Did you feel like he was leading you on in that sense?
He verbally told me, actually. He said that he saw that things could be like long term with us. Like he was seeing me as somebody that he could potentially have a long term relationship with, but nothing that he was doing was actually mirroring that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We see a lot of that, that conflicting behavior in the words, and they don't line up. Okay, so you end things with him. He immediately blocks you, right? Got his feelings hurt, which is interesting because, he could have said at the time, well, I really do want to see where this is going with you, but it doesn't sound like he said anything like that.
He did say that he wanted things to work, but he just wasn't doing anything to actually make it work.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
Do you hear a lot of that stuff in your calls?
Yeah, where there's this ideal of, I would like to, get married, have kids, have this future, move in together, but the steps to get to that point are lacking. They don't have that kind of effort that they're putting in. Or sometimes even know-how, because it does take vulnerability. It does take a lot to be able to move things forward in a relationship. And a lot of people, we like to see ourselves in the best light, right? We like to take on the challenge until the spotlight hits us.
So then after he blocks you, how long goes by, and then he unblocked you and started watching you?
About 2 weeks.
Now you must have been so confused at this point.
I was thinking maybe he was trying to tell me that he wanted to connect, but was too afraid to. Like say, he was too afraid to say something. So, I let some time go by and realized he was still doing it on a very consistent basis, like every day. And so I thought maybe I would reach out to him, and then I just didn't get anywhere with it.
So did you say, that's when you apologized?
I apologized at the very end of our conversation. I knew it wasn't going anywhere, and I at least wanted to say, I'm sorry if maybe I said something that, that just, I responded before thinking about what I was going to say, because I was upset. So I wanted to at least apologize for my part on the last communication that we had, and he said, thank you, I appreciate it, and that's where it stopped.
Okay. And then there he is just watching, but not communicating.
Correct.
He's like a ghost. But he's a ghost that's actually watching you, which is even more odd.
Yeah, and he actually said something very interesting when I had asked him, well, you're watching my stories. Is there, is there something that you want to communicate with me? And he said no. He was like, but I can block you if you want me to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly confusing because, why did you unblock me and why are you watching still if we're not even going to have some kind of cordial connection here or, in some way? Because it's so interesting now with dating apps. It's like or even social media. You follow somebody and you might follow that person for like 20 years and then you're like, who is this person?
Right.
I don't even know how I know this person. So now it's like dating that's going on with dating too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Now, I'm curious, you had met with him 3 times. In person, how would you say your connection was like? Did he bring up any doubts? Did he bring up any hesitances that he might have had?
No, our time together was really nice.
Yeah, that makes it even more confusing.
Yeah.
So what do you think was going on with him? Do you think he had more of an avoidant attachment style, or he was still wanting to see what else is out there, that he was maybe fresh out of a relationship?
Well, I definitely think I was one of the women he was rotating. I kind of felt like I was put in the corner. And I do feel like he is an avoidant. And I don't have a whole lot of information on him. I haven't known him that long. He, in person, did show, by talking to me, some vulnerability by talking about things that were very sensitive to him. But when it came to any kind of relationship stuff, it just didn't seem like the idea was out there, but he just didn't know how to actually follow through with it.
Yeah. Online dating for somebody with a more avoidant attachment style can be tough because when you're meeting somebody online, there's already this pretense of this is romantic. There's already that kind of romantic atmosphere versus when you're meeting somebody organically, you don't know where things will go. You don't know anything about that person, right? And so it can bring a whole different level of pressure to dating when there's already this expectation. However, if you're on a dating app, you have to be somewhat aware of that. You have to have a goal to be dating. And I know sometimes on the dating apps now, it will have listed what that person is looking for. If they're looking for something short-term, long-term, if they're not sure. So it's interesting what you'll find on those apps.
And then how authentic are those people being about what they really want?
Right,
because a lot of guys will just say that they're looking for a relationship because they know that's what women want to hear. But it's not easy for men, okay? I talk to a lot of guys on dating apps, and they say women just aren't swiping left or to making an effort to communicate. So a lot of guys are telling me that the women just aren't swiping left to give them a chance. And so
it would be swiping right.
Oh, swiping right, sorry.
Left, right, up, down, sideways.
They're all getting the left. They're not getting, nothing's going right, okay? That's what we'll say. That should be the dating app. Nothing's going right.
And it's interesting because now people are like perfectly curating their profiles. And so some of the really good male profiles might be getting all of the female hits if we're assuming that it's like a straight kind of situation. And so you can have somebody who feels like they have all these options. You were saying that you felt like one of the women on his rotation. That's a crappy feeling when you're feeling that from somebody who's telling you that they could see something long term.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a bit of a mixed message. And I could see how just this option overload can cause people to lose what their focus is.
It's like everybody's window shopping, but nobody wants to buy.
Yeah. It's like you have multiple items in the cart. You're still in the store.
Yeah.
Going around.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Not making a decision and truly, giving a relationship a chance.
It's so true. But I want to say, for the guys, it is not easy for the guys either. Did you hear about the guy who swiped right on like 2.5 million people and only had one date?
I did see that.
I mean, that's brutal. I would take that to the grave, by the way. There's no way I would tell anybody that happened to me. 2.5 million. And they showed the data on it. Wow. It was real. It was legit.
I'd be curious to see what the profile looks like.
That would make you feel a little bit better.
A lot of it can be optics, on those profiles.
I think after the first million, I'd be like, maybe I need a different profile picture.
Probably.
I need somebody to help spice this up. Or a different dating app.
Yeah, that too.
Brutal.
No, I will say I am glad that you were able to bring up what your expectations were earlier on. I find that a lot of people, they'll just kind of skirt past some of the red flags and maybe be a little bit too patient on situations that just aren't working for them. So sometimes when you do have this option overload, it's not a bad thing to have your standards in place and to have this game of, weeding out the wrong people. Even on dating apps where it seems like you may have a lot of options, maybe for women, maybe not so much for men, but being able to be super, super, super selective, I think, is important. That's not something that men want to hear. I understand that.
I mean, I think it's a challenge for everybody. And, you hear about cities like New York, and it's like, I've heard it's incredibly difficult there to find somebody that wants a relationship because everybody just thinks they're going to find somebody else that's better. And everyone has that mentality. So, long-term relationships are a real challenge in some of those big cities.
Yeah. And I also want to bring up social media because I noticed this on my own feed. I don't know if it's just because I'm in the relationship content creating world, but I noticed that a lot of content on social media is almost designed to pit men and women against each other. I'll find things on my feed that are very hateful towards men. Sometimes I'll see things from my male friends from their feed that are very hateful towards women. And so you see these things that are influencing us, and I think are influencing our dating culture to where we're starting to have maybe more rigid views of what dating looks like, and that makes it more difficult for everybody.
I think it's probably a smaller percentage of people that are causing a lot of the problems, right? I think that there are a small percentage of people, like maybe 20%, that are really going out there, misleading people, hurting people, doing toxic, manipulative things. And so it kind of makes it feel awful for everybody out there. I don't think everybody goes on there with these ill intentions of not really trying to find something meaningful. I think most people probably are looking for something meaningful, don't you?
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about other experiences that you've had with dating? I'm curious just to hear your perspective. And as, a single parent, having a kid involved, I hear a lot from single parents that it's like a package deal. Your kid's your number one priority. And so you want somebody who can, be serious and take dating seriously.
Yes, so dating with a kid is very difficult. You have to make sure that you set time aside. I learned a while ago that, it's best for my child not to meet anybody that I'm dating that I'm not serious about. So there is specific times where it's easier for me to be able to accept a date and go out. But I'm pretty flexible, and I can usually always make it work, and I try my best to communicate that. But just in general with the dating, I just see a lot of like ghosting or scheduling dates where they don't then follow through with the dates. They'll either cancel the plan last minute, or they just won't even contact you at all to confirm, hey, are we meeting tonight?
Wow, that's really bad. I mean, that's really cruel to do to somebody, Especially, when somebody has a child, they need to have somebody watching that kid, the babysitter or a family member, or they're with their parent, your other parent. And so it's just incredibly cruel to do. And, I think part of it is that when these dating apps have kind of made us anonymous. The internet makes you anonymous to some degree, that you're not held accountable to all your friends and family about how you treat somebody. They don't know how you're acting. You know what I mean?
There should be a no call, no show fee. Send an invoice.
You know what? It should be on the app, and if you both confirm you don't show up, that person gets $20 or something like that. You have an agreed upon rate.
Right, because sometimes, and I do
that
agree
could go
with
terribly wrong now that I'm thinking about it.
I do agree with what you're saying about how the internet can make people anonymous. I think it can really dehumanize people. When you see so many options, you just see profiles. It's almost like a video game. So you don't realize that when you're making plans and canceling on a person, that you're affecting their life, you're affecting their schedule. And so, we on our channel, where we talk about relationships, we always try to promote, direct communication and clear communication to be able to let somebody know. I know that there's there can be this fear of, oh man, if I bring it up, then it's going to be uncomfortable and I don't know what to say. I'm just going to avoid it altogether. But we need, as a society, to be challenged to have these difficult conversations for the betterment of everyone.
Yep. I do think that, one of the components of modern dating that makes it so difficult is that, 100 years ago, everybody knew you both. The friends and the family, they were all integrated. And so you weren't anonymous. You weren't able to come and go and ghost people as you please. And I think the anonymity of this has really, I think it brings out a really bad side to people. Not just with dating apps, but with, different social media. People get really aggressive and they're rude, and, a side of them comes out because they feel like, well, nobody's going to know what I say or do here.
Right. I don't owe anybody anything. And while you might not owe anybody anything, right, there's still human decency. There's still being able to communicate the things that, are going on in your life and be clear with others. So I think that's important. I will say the people who don't show up on the date, they're weeding themselves out. It sounds like you're a person who knows what you want, and that's important.
Yes, because I've actually experienced it quite a bit, which has been really shocking to me. I wanted to talk about the expectations of women on first dates or even second dates. Is it, and this could be a totally personal opinion, but are women supposed to pay, or are they supposed to offer to pay for half? How do you relay expectations of a more traditional dating style, instead of a guy just pulling up and texting from his car that he's here, or just things that you would think that are supposed to be more common sense.
Wow. So there aren't even some basic rules that people have any idea of to follow here.
And this is so interesting. I love this question because it is personal, but it's also cultural. I think back on my days living in Norway, where it's a lot more common for people to split the bill.
Or the snowman to pay.
Or for the snowman to pay, or for the garden gnome to pay. And so I find that there's a cultural aspect to this too. But, here in the U.S., let's say, I do think it's something that is personal. Now, my opinion with my cultural background, in Italian, there's a phrase that goes, whoever invites pays. And so if there is somebody who's wanting to take you on a date, because they're offering, because they're inviting, at least from my understanding and from my beliefs, it's best that they cover that cost.
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to look at it. I'm a little bit more traditional. That I think that the guy should pay. Mm-hmm. That's just me.
I'm just saying I'm not invited. I'm always being invited. I'm just kidding.
And that's why it worked for you. I think the guy should pay. I think most places in this world, women want the guy to make an effort and to show that he's got some kind of interest, and to court her and to make her feel cared about and interested, and like he's actually invested in the situation, right? And so I think that's part of it. You take a woman out, you show her that you're interested, and if you're not, then you either let her know, or you don't ghost somebody, but sometimes people just don't gel, and you just kind of stop talking a little bit, and it's not necessarily one person is ghosting the other.
Right. I also believe in that concept of you teaching others how to treat you just based on what you accept and what you allow. And so it's okay to have some of these conversations at a certain point, right? Because I think that there can be some miscommunication with, customs, what's socially acceptable to do or not. Maybe there's a guy who's had a really bad experience with his previous dates where they've all been, no, I'm going to pay. How dare you suggest that you pay for me? I can pay and I have my own money. So it can be helpful to bring up some of these things if, you could say, hey, this was my experience or my feelings regarding how that date went, and my expectations. It's totally okay if that's not something that, you see the same way or that you're not willing to do, and then we can have differences of opinions on that, and you can decide if you want to continue dating that person or not. So I think it's okay to have some of those conversations, but depending, right? Now, would that be a make it or break it? Let's say you have a fantastic connection with somebody, and on the first date, the man doesn't pay. Is that something that you would be willing to bring up?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
How do you feel about it?
I've actually had it happen.
Okay, tell us, sure.
Well, let's hear what happened.
Well, I had, after the second or third date, I had mentioned it, and it was, it was very much apparent that the other person expected, to pretty much have an equal share of the bill as a dating standard. So I think it is a very personal decision.
Did you cut things off with that person, or what happened?
Yes, but it was just for different reasons, along the lines of like consistency and stuff like that. So,
and that I understand. Something that I do hear from men is this fear that women are gold diggers. And while I do believe that is a thing, I do think that people can have, very specific intentions in their dating. Maybe there are some women who are very goal oriented on marrying somebody who's very wealthy, right? I would say, maybe this is a generalization, but I would say most women aren't just looking for a meal ticket. And if they are, then that probably will be apparent quite soon. There probably will be other character traits that you'll see,
sure,
early on. And dating is a risk. I think people are always trying to mitigate their risk. Listen, if the risk is a $10 meal or a 4 for $4 at Wendy's or whatever, I don't even know where 4 for $4s are.
I think it is Wendy's.
But if you're dating, that you have to account for that, right? You have to be able to afford dating to a certain degree.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't have to go on expensive dates.
Right.
You can go for a walk and grab a drink together, or, get a coffee date or something, go look at a sunset or something.
Yeah,
You don't have to do expensive things on dating. I don't think dates in the beginning should be expensive, because I think it feels like a lot of pressure to people.
Right.
So I think they should be a little bit more casual. Maybe you get appetizers and drinks, and then maybe go someplace fun.
Yeah.
Arcades or bowling, or, depends upon where you live. There's a lot more things to do in different places.
Right.
We live in Orlando, so there's a zillion things to do.
That's true. It's always going to be a risk. And whether it is an investment of your money or time, there is going to be some investment in getting to know somebody else.
Oh, yes. The aspect of chasing, how it's been told, men want to be chased and women shouldn't chase men. There's a stigma around it that's been going on recently. And I feel like nobody really knows what to do in the dating world anymore.
I think that you want to give a guy a little bit. You don't want to be too dry, because then he's going to think you're not interested. So you gotta, maybe like some posts or comment on some things if you're on social media together, to show that you make some bids to connect with them. I mean, I do think that guys do like a little bit of a challenge too, for whatever reason. I think maybe that's their nature. But if a guy is making an effort and he's not getting anything back, he's going to be like, oh, well, she's not interested. She's on the dating app, so she's probably talking to 20 other guys, and that guy will just get anxious thinking that he's or she's out with a million other people.
And the concept of bids for connection is really important, because when somebody makes a bid for connection, it's basically extending out an olive branch. And that is, when we're thinking about longer lasting relationships, satisfying relationships, we're thinking about a couple who's able to banter, who's able to pick up on those little things that might have been overlooked that somebody says, and pay attention to each other. That's really what makes the difference in a longer lasting relationship. Sometimes people in early stages of dating, they're so excited to impress the other person and talk about themselves or whatever it might be, that they lose the curiosity of finding out about the other person. And so I think that can also impact things too. But regarding chase, I feel like most people would have a different definition of what chase looks like, right?
That's true.
And sometimes attachment style plays into it too. You ask somebody who's avoidant what chasing looks like versus somebody who's anxious, and you get two totally different answers. An avoidant might have, texted somebody sup And they'd be like, man, I think I overwhelmed the person. I might have over pursued. I think I texted too much. So it could all be so relative.
And it also has to do with the timing, because avoidants are going to come on very strong in those first 6 months of a relationship, as opposed to a year in. They're going to be like running away when you say sup.
Right.
So it also has a part so that's why it can be really confusing, because avoidants don't act avoidant in the beginning. Anxious people tend to act more avoidant in the beginning, because they're like, I don't know you, and I don't trust you. And so they come on really strong, and then by the time that person starts to open up, that anxious person opens up, the avoidant runs away, and they're like, no, wait, I'm attached now. I care now. See it all the time. So long-term relationships are very different, and the attachment issues are going to be very different once you get to like that 1 year mark. So you got to be aware that avoidance will come on very strong. Okay, in those first 6 months. After about 6 months, they're not going to come on as strong usually. So knowing that is a big helpful tip to, okay, who they are now is not likely who they're going to be 2 years from now.
Right. It can be difficult because, yes, things change, but I also think in the beginning stages of dating, you're also setting a bit of a precedent. I think it's important to be able to communicate the way that we want to communicate too, right? And always be checking in with ourselves of, does this feel okay? Am I okay with this pace of communicating or not? And giving that other person feedback is really important. And I'll share personally, and Craig knows this, I'm a person who's not a quick replier. I am not a fast responder at all.
6 to 8 business days. Standard.
Right. And so it can be a struggle, but hearing feedback from multiple people is really helpful if somebody is self-aware, right? And if they're willing to work and change on things. So I think, in regards to chasing or not chasing, I think communication is both an art and a science, right?
Yep.
And being able to be clear with what you expect and see what the other person is willing to do. Maybe the other person says, you know what, I'm just super busy and I can't text you every day. If you're not okay with that, then that's a decision that you'd have to make. Am I willing to be patient with this, see where this relationship goes, see where this develops, or is this something that does not work for me, if you know your own anxiety levels or, so on and so forth.
One of the things that you brought up earlier was women's expectations. What are you seeing from that side of things that women are maybe expecting or frustrated with?
I think that they're frustrated with just, the lack of just the behavior in the dating culture, the no follow through, the long distance without, the long distance in between without hearing from somebody, not feeling like anybody wants anything serious anymore. Those are all pretty common complaints. And that's all I can think of on the top of my head.
Okay, what do you think about that?
I think men are being challenged now. I don't think that women's expectations are too low, but I think everybody needs to be real with themselves in terms of what they want. And I honestly...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think women being able to communicate their expectations and also not being afraid to say, hey, this isn't working for me when it's not. If somebody received feedback from, let's say, their previous dates saying that they were, surprised to have paid for half of the meal or whatever it was, or half of the date, then they're receiving that feedback and it teaches them. It says, okay, well, maybe the women in my area that I'm dating, they have these certain expectations. So I've heard before that your highest negotiation power is the ability to walk away. So sure. I think it's important to be able to communicate those expectations, but when you're seeing that somebody is not following through, to not be afraid to weed those people out.
And I think another thing that could help dating in general is for people to transition more from offline or online to offline and looking for ways to meet people in person, where you're feeling more like you connect with somebody and now they're a real person to you. You know, so activities, clubs, organizations, volunteering, you know, friends, going out. I think people need to start trying to make an effort to try and be a little bit more social in person, as opposed to, because when it's online, it just feels so impersonal.
Yeah, I agree. And I've changed my opinion on that, because before, you know, I was really supportive of online dating, and I now see a lot more of its struggles, just as time has continued, and I'm seeing a lot more social clubs pop up. So if you're in an area where maybe there's not one, some of my clients have actually been leaders in creating those communities. So that's also something that I like to see, is more people interacting with one another. Like I had said earlier, when we remove this romantic expectation, then you can connect with people much more authentically. This is less of, oh, I'm trying to puff my feathers up for this person and see if this potential date will accept me. And it's more of, okay, I'm in an environment that's social, I'm able to be myself, I'm more relaxed. And I find that brings a different side of people.
And most importantly, no AI pictures.
That too.
I saw recently somebody went on a date, and I guess the person that he went on the date with, this woman, had AI pictures of her, and he pulled out the pictures and said, "Where did you take these pictures?" And she goes, "Oh, they're AI." And he walked away. He just left the date. So I guess he felt like she didn't look enough like the person or the AI image.
Oh man.
But
being very authentic.
Now we're having computer generated versions of next we're going to have robot versions of us going on robot versions of them dates, and our robots are going to be dating and not us.
That's true. I think authenticity is really, really important. I wanted to address one more thing. As we're talking about expectations and maintaining those expectations, not being afraid to walk away, another important piece that I want to bring up is we also have to make sure that what we're expecting, we're also exuding, right?
True.
So that's something that I think also is important, because on our channel we talk a lot about personal growth, self-development. And so if you get to that point where you're like, man, I would date me, I do bring a lot to the table, I would be a great partner to somebody, you know, at that point, that's a confident place to be at. And at that place, then you can start to, you know, communicate your expectations too.
Yeah, I think not enough people hold themselves accountable. There's a lot of blame out there. And, you know, blaming the opposite sex. I mean, constantly everybody's blaming the opposite sex. And I think those people need to take a closer look at their relationship with their parents. Right?
Such a therapist thing to say.
Well, we are therapists. But I think that when you really work through some of that stuff with your own parents, you realize that it's not so much the opposite gender as opposed to we are all human beings that have our own sets of issues that we're trying to work through.
Yeah. And I also think curiosity can go a long way. You know, I think we hear a lot of things online about how dating is, how dating should go. Having more of these personal conversations with the person that's across from you at the dinner table is so important. What do you specifically think about dating? What are you specifically, you know, looking for, or hope to happen, or, you know, what would a day in the life of, I don't know, a relationship would look like for you? So making things personal and being curious about them rather than maybe reactive or, you know, thinking or hoping they go a certain way.
Yeah, curiosity is absolutely huge. Genuine curiosity, because when you're genuinely curious, you want to connect with that person. And when you're trying to understand what they like, and you can genuinely care about those things too, you're going to have a connection, right? So I do think curiosity is a huge component to a strong connection. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any easy answers for dating and relationships. In some ways, social media and dating apps have made it simpler, but in some ways it's more complicated. Now you're not limited to who lives in town, right? Now you can talk to literally anybody around the world. So in that sense, it's really opened up some things. But because people are now more anonymous with it, there's a side of them that wouldn't come out when, you know, everybody knew who you were in town, right? So I think it's everybody's trying to adapt, trying to adjust and figure out how to handle this. But when you work through your attachment issues and you become more secure and confident, it's going to make dating a lot more easier, because you're going to weed out those people. You're going to have higher expectations, and those people that are neglecting you or frustrating you, you're not going to be so tolerant. And you're going to let them know, look, you don't reach out very often. I feel like you don't care about me, and unless you change that behavior, I'm going to have to walk away. Sometimes you have to let people know, and then that allows them to make the choice on what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also say on your end, it sounds like this person that we had talked about from the beginning of the call has been confusing you. You can also make that decision to remove him from social media.
True.
Right? If you see somebody who's inconsistent, what value do they bring to your life? What value do they bring to being on your followers list?
Yeah,
Sometimes you just gotta ask it like that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is if she leaves him on there, every time she sees him, it's just going to make her think about him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if he doesn't want to communicate, maybe you just remove him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you stop thinking about it, and you eventually just kind of forget about him and move forward.
Yeah.
I think we covered a lot here.
Yeah.
So what do you think? I hope this was helpful to you. Do you feel like we've gone over a lot of the topics that you wanted to cover?
Yes, yeah. Just it's hard to navigate, and I appreciate all your insight into it, and I'm sure the audience does too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with us. We really appreciate you having you on here, and let us know if any of these ideas work for you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.